For the last few years now, Peugeot have been doing something a bit different. Everything from them looks great on the outside and in fact on the inside. The 508, which is this model in GT spec, trim and engine, is possibly one of the best looking Peugeots of recent times. There's a 508 badge on the front, which is a nod to the 504, which had it on the top of the bonnet in the 1970s. And if you hit notification and subscribe to the channel, I'll have the station wagon version of the car in mid-August. So if you want to get that video to pop up on your device, hit subscribe and the notification button. You get black wing mirrors on the GT line spec and obviously on the GT version of the car. So you get privacy glass here, the bigger alloy wheels. These are 18, there's an optional 19-inch that you can get, and the lines of it are just phenomenal. When you have the black contrasting bits around the back here as well, it just looks so impressive on the road, and it really does turn a lot of heads. So we've a lot to get through in this video. We're going to take a look around the inside of it, take it on the road for a spin and see what this version is like, which is pushing out 225 brake horsepower from a 1.6 engine. Higher spec models of the car get aluminium across the front grille. In lesser models you get more plastic here, and those sweeping LED lights, which again you have to go for more expensive models or at least upgrade them to get that. This car also has Peugeot's night vision technology, which can sense pedestrians and animals in dark places such as the Phoenix Park. What you'll be doing there at night time is your own business, but the car can see things that you can't. This fastback version of the car gets a much lower roof line. It does cause some problems when you're getting in and out with passengers and indeed for drivers and adults in the front. I'll explain more in the video, but the lines just work so well. It's a great looking car from the side as well. And you get all kinds of sweeping displays with the indicators and the LED rear lights on the back of the car, which always look good and can only make you think of Michael Knight, even for a moment. If you go for the GT line version in the car, there is an electric boot release which you can operate with your foot, and you just do that and the thing will pop up, which is very, very handy. But on lesser models you don't get that, and it is quite a heavy boot because it's quite long, so it might be something you want to consider as an optional extra should you want to get an electric boot release in it. A generous boot, however, this one comes with a 508 embossed plastic boot liner, which is good for carrying rougher stuff and animals. You get a 12-volt charger in the back here, some hooks for your shopping, and the rear set of seats can be accessed through a kind of a ski access point, and there's tethering hooks and stuff throughout the car. And let me just check just to double confirm, but yes, you do get a space saver spare wheel, which is unusual enough these days because a lot of brands are just giving you foam, which in my opinion is not much use at the side of the road at 2 o'clock in the morning in the pitch dark. So bring back the spare wheels, that's what I say. Even if you don't like white cars normally, admit it, this one does look pretty good, doesn't it? Comment below and let me know, would you be brave enough to go for white in the 508 should you be buying one? If you do need to make that boot bigger, you can release the rear seats from in here, pull down forward. It's like a 70-30. It's not quite flat, but it certainly will do. More ways the car benefits in lines and side-on looks is the windows all around are frameless and they look very nice as a result. Keyless comes on this one, so you just rub your fingers like that to lock the car, and when you walk up to it, it knows who you are and that you have a key on you and it'll let you in. One thing to note is, although this one has 225 brake horsepower from the 1.6, there is a version with 180 brake horsepower in just a normal GT line, so it's the GT engine, but that's 10 grand cheaper. The car will look identical to this, but it will save you 10 grand. It's something worth considering. So let's jump into the 508 and take a look around the inside, where most people will be very, very impressed. Nice tub, by the way. There's any echo, it's because of that. I'll explain what that is about later on, but I needed this for something in this car this week. Trust me. I love this idea of a central sloping cockpit. It's like something you'd find in the latest generation Porsches, just far less buttons. And you have a huge big drawer in here for storing your phone and your keys and whatever else you might want to keep in here. There is also a 12-volt charger. I think an extra USB here, which there isn't, wouldn't be a bad thing, but sadly it doesn't come with it. You do get lovely soft leather here as well. This is Napa leather because again it's the top spec. There's a huge area for storing everything from sunglasses and keys and everything else you might want to put in there. 2 cup holders in this part of the car. They don't actually go all the way to the bottom if you have these lids on because the armrest does get in the way. You get an electric handbrake here, automatic gearbox in this version. Most of these cars come with an automatic. You can get a manual, obviously, the less to pay, but you will recognize this gear shifter from Citroens and other Peugeots, and dare I say it, possibly Opels very, very soon as well after news this week. Then you've got drive mode selection buttons here. You've got an engine stop start. All your important stuff is still an actual button, although it's a kind of a haptics feeling button, but you have your heated seats. You can turn your aircon on and off. You can recycle your air. And then you have these piano keys, which bring you shortcuts to your music, your aircon, your sat nav, different settings for the car, and your Bluetooth connectivity. There's even a setting, if you go for it on the electric seats, where you can turn on relax and boost. Boost is an augmented sound in the car and everything gets a bit more lively, including the aircon. Actually, the climate's more aggressive. And then you have relax mode, where you can turn on some driving aids, such as the driver massage option. You turn that on, there's different settings where you can scroll through what type you'd like. The seats are starting to massage me. Optional glass sunroof up here, which is really, really nice. Floods in lots of light into the cabin, and it's not the biggest in terms of how far it goes back, but it does stick out the roof of the car, so I can see why it can't go all the way back. But it's a very good looking car. It's very futuristic as you look around. Anybody who's been a passenger with me this week has been really impressed, and I suppose just kind of shocked that it's a Peugeot. And I'm like, have you not seen what they've been doing for the last few years? Android and Apple CarPlay and lots of safety features as standard. You get dual zone climate control, lane keep assist, and emergency braking, all coming with the active model. It also comes with a 180-degree reversing camera. The quality of it is not amazing. The resolution could be better and sharper. If you do spend that extra bit on the Allure model, you'll get blind spot in your wing mirrors, which are just a lifesaver in cars as far as I'm concerned. The cheapest GT line version, which is the one with the trim, not the engine, starts from €38,000, but you do get more stuff like LED headlights. The show-offy lights on the LED rears, they come as standard as well. You'll get 18-inch alloy wheels. You'll also get the adaptive cruise control with a stop and go function, which is very handy if you're driving on things like the M50 every day of the goddamn week. Finally, if you go for the GT version, there's 2 options, a diesel 2-litre 180 brake horsepower and a petrol 1.6 225 brake horsepower. You get all the stuff I've mentioned plus these nicer seats with the massaging functions. You get a focal sound system which has subs and stuff throughout the car, and you'll get to feel like you have the daddy. But it is just over €49,000, so you'll be a broke daddy. Now, where did I leave that spanner? Let me show you why I needed this in the 508. Hope you've hit subscribe by now, by the way. Let's take a look, see what's going on. When you do get into the back of the 508, you'll notice how much legroom there is. That seat is fairly far back, and I'm still very comfortable. Now, sadly, the glass roof, as I've been showing you, doesn't come into the back of the car too much. You do get a nice sense of light from the front. There's LED lights which are touch and go. You can stop and start them, and it all works very, very nicely. You get a center armrest, the space for 2 cups, and the boot, which is 487 litres. You can access that from in here through a load door. Not huge, but you would be able to get stuff in and out of there. Now, if you go to the Napa leather, it really is very, very nice, and there's lovely kind of grooves and ridges into the seats, so it's impressive. There's 2 USB charging points down here. They're actually illuminated with an LED light, making them easier to find. And those LED lights continue here. There's a little hook for coats and shirts in that part, and again, if you go for the upgraded sound system, there's focal speakers in the back of the car as well. There's even cargo storage areas, net ones in the back. Now zips bring me to the next part of this video, because this is a vice grips pliers, and I've had to use this week for something in this car. And I don't think I've ever sworn as much at a car, a vehicle. I don't think I've ever had kids looking out going, what the hell is taking Dad so long to get the seat sorted? But let me explain. So, the Isofix seats in this car are where you'd find them, but they're zipped. So most cars you either have to try and get underneath the gap. Some cars have little plastic covers, you just take them out, it's very easy to get to. Not in the 508, they're zipped. So you've got taut Napa leather with zips on them, and it is impossible to get the zips down because they're so tight, and they're very small, so you're afraid that you're going to break them. So if you're going to put your kids' seats into the back of your 508, you will need something like this the first time you do them, and then don't ever take them out again or you will be going mad. Now thankfully the door liners, the pockets, are lined with carpet, so when you do need to keep a spanner spare, it won't rattle around. Ridiculous. All versions of the 508 in Ireland do come with the iCockpit in the centre and this really cool steering wheel. However, if you go from the Allure up, you get a larger screen. This one is 10-inch, and you get a larger iCockpit display, which can go up to 12 inches. One thing I will say, the cruise control stalk, which is here, is hidden behind the steering wheel. Unless you get to know the car, which you will obviously as you get under your ownership belt, it's just hard to decide, is this making me go faster? Is this turning it on? Is this turning it off? Is that for the volume? It's a little bit confusing. On the plus side, the iCockpit, if you have the steering wheel at a certain height, you can clearly see that, because if you do have to raise the steering wheel up, some of the instruments will be blocked, but you can mess around with that so it works in your line of sight. But overall, it's wrapped around luxury. It feels really opulent, soft touches. Yeah, there's some plastics in it, you know, the further you go down, but generally everything you're going to be coming into contact with has got a leathery feel, a stitched feel, brushed aluminium, and it all looks and feels spectacular. Getting behind the wheel of the 225 brake horsepower version of the car, there are times when you'd kind of say, 225 brake, really? Doesn't really feel like it. So it's a brisk saloon, but it's not a rocket either. Now, if you go for the 130 brake horsepower 1.5 diesel, I've driven that in other cars, other Peugeot ranges and Citroën. In fact, if you want to click up there, you'll see a link to my video review of the 5008, which uses that 130 brake horsepower. Now, that is 100 brake horsepower down on this engine, so there is going to be a difference, but I think that 1.5 diesel engine might actually be more than capable. Now, the car handles reasonably well. The steering is quite light. This steering wheel that is fairly unique to Peugeot. I haven't seen anything too like it in a mass production car. It certainly gives you a sporting feel because it just feels nimble and it's smaller, so it fits in your hand better. And does it make you think the car is going faster? Perhaps. The 508 does sit quite low down, so you feel like you're pretty much driving a coupe. I mean, it is a grand coupe for all intents and purposes, so you have a lower position. When you lower down your driver's seat, which is electrically adjustable in this model, there's memory seats to go with that as well. You really can feel like you're sitting on the ground. So it is quite an enjoyable car to be behind the wheel of for longer journeys. It's a bit of a touring feel about it. Overall fuel economy is 10.8 litres per 100 kilometres. As always, for people watching in the UK, I'll give you the MPG on the screen there, and that's been pretty much around a city centre driving environment. However, I'm on a longer stretch at the moment now where I'm on kind of country roads, and it's easily doing 5 litres per 100 kilometres, cruising at about 80 kilometres per hour. That's 50 miles per hour for those of you watching across in the UK. The windows, which do have quite a low sloping line, also just make the windows on the side of the car a little bit smaller than you might expect in a saloon. However, you do get blind spot in many of the trims of the 508. Once you spend any sort of extra money on the more expensive models, you will find yourself behind the wheel of a 508 with an automatic gearbox. It's an 8-speed, really smooth changing gearbox in general. However, there are times when the car is not quite sure in slower traffic, do you want to be in second or third, or should I actually be in fourth? And the car gets a little bit confused. However, most of the time, even without turning it into sport mode, if you accelerate hard, it will hold onto the gears quite a bit longer and lets you progress at a quicker pace. And it works very well that way. But there are times where I just find it going between second and third, and it's not quite sure where it needs to be. Now, putting the floor down, the engine note sounds pretty okay, and it's quite brisk to get into corners. So when you want to have some fun, it's very doable. Now, coming into a bend and testing the brakes, there's plenty of power in them as well. For a car sitting on 18-inch alloy wheels, it doesn't feel particularly firm. There's still a decent amount of profile in the tires. You can go to 19-inch. Not sure how harsh they would be. You do get adaptive suspension then as well on the GT version of the car. Peugeot say that 90% of 508 sales in Ireland will be diesel. There's the 130 brake horsepower version of that. Obviously there's some great petrol options there for you if petrol is something that you're interested in, but I think a lot of sales of this type of car still live in diesel territory. Now, if you go for the active version, which is €2,500 dearer than the entry-level Allure, you can get the 130 brake horsepower diesel unit with an 8-speed automatic gearbox, and you'll get better spec and trim. If you do feel that life is too short and you only live once and you need to get a GT line, obviously that car will look better on the inside. It'll have sportier cues all over it, nicer alloy wheels, the more impressive LED headlights, and you'll have one of the best looking cars in the car park in work. If you have a question about the 508, leave one in the comments below. Obviously like the video if you've enjoyed watching this, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. It is much appreciated to help the channel grow. Thank you for watching this one, the Peugeot 508. Certainly an interesting car, certainly a gorgeous car to look at, and one that I've enjoyed driving for the week that I've had it. I'll see you on the next episode very, very soon. Bye bye.